Rejected, throwing away, affected. I don't know what to say. Ejected, cast out to the sea, disconnected. They didn't want me.
Hello everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of Nicksmissal IV, the final chapter. I am Patricia, and I am here with MikeJEHMSZ. Welcome back, MikeJEHMSZ.
Hello everyone, I'm MikeJEHMSZ, and yes, it's me.
So, we're concluding the 90s with a discussion of a pilot that was supposed to bring back the good old days of the Terrytoons cartoons back in the 30s. It is a pilot called Curbside. So there's a long and interesting history behind Terrytoons for those who don't know. So around the 30s, it was basically like the golden era of animation. We had the likes of Disney, Warner Brothers, the Fleischer Brothers, and a whole bunch of others. And Terrytoons was kind of like, I would say like towards, like not as recognized compared to all the others. They had characters such as the Crows Heckle and Jekyll, they had Deputy Dog, they had Sidney the Elephant, and probably for, at least for our generation, they were also known for Mighty Mouse. So around the 90s, Nickelodeon wanted to do a cartoon based off of the Terrytoons cartoons, simply called Curbside. And right before we get into that, I want to read off a very interesting article that I found online, which you can find on cartoonresearch.com. So, the long story is that Jerry Beck, who is a very well-known animation historian, he is like the Leonard Maltin of cartoons. He had spent several years before its production reviving the Terrytoons cartoons around Nickelodeon and tried to clear the rights with Viacom to allow Nickelodeon to do so. However, it didn't work out for him because after he left, Viacom cleared the rights for Nickelodeon to do it, and then eventually they had to bring in other people to finish off Jerry's cartoon idea. So Mary Harrington, who was the main director of all the Nicktoons at the time, brought in Bob Taylor for the cartoon. And ever since the release, Jerry Beck was just absolutely embarrassed with it. In fact, he even said on a quote from that same website, "I have actively fought to keep anyone," as in like with all capitals, anyone, from seeing the awful Curbside pilot, which I had nothing to do with. So, after that, he tried pitching the idea of doing a revival of Tom Terrific with Fred Seibert, and then he later tried again with Sidney the Elephant. Unfortunately, it didn't last for very long, and he pretty much had to start off from scratch with doing Hornswiggle the Rhino, and that was shown in the Random Cartoons sketch. And as of right now, nothing came out of that. So yeah, Jerry Beck tried for the longest time to revive the Terrytoons cartoon with pretty much little to no success. And nowadays, CBS has the rights to the Terrytoons after it was bought by Viacom a few years ago.
From what I hear from the articles you just read, Patricia, I gotta say, Jerry Beck seemed really devoted to this project.
Yeah, he was really devoted to this project because, let's be honest, I mean, you know, we know about Disney. We know about the Warner Brothers cartoons like Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and Porky Pig. We know about the Fleischers with Betty Boop and Popeye. But Terrytoons is not much of a household name when it comes to cartoons. You don't really hear a lot of people talking about the others. Probably with the exception of Mighty Mouse, because they have done the New Adventures of Mighty Mouse back in the 80s, done by Ralph Bakshi. But for the most part, really nothing else. In fact, the only reason why, personally for me, I knew about Deputy Dog, and this might be a really embarrassing thing to say, but the only reason why I heard about it was because there was a scene in The Waterboy by Adam Sandler, in which you have the scene in which the mom was talking to the girlfriend of Bobby Boucher, saying, did you know that he sleeps with a pair of pajamas of Deputy Dog? And then the girlfriend said, well, I find Deputy Dog to be very, very sexy. So yeah, that's the only reason why I know who Deputy Dog was when going into that. So as of right now, I have never seen any of the Terrytoons cartoons when watching Curbside. So you know what, let's just get this over with. So originally it was created in 1999, and the pilot is basically like divided into sections, similar to like a variety show like Kablam. So the main one starts off with Heckle and Jekyll, and they were given a statue that looks like a jack-o'-lantern scarecrow, and apparently it's cursed. And I keep forgetting which is which, Heckle or Jekyll, but one of them touches it, and at first he's like, oh, that's not gonna bother me or whatever, and then they do their variety show. Now, it's not like Kablam, in which it's a variety show with cameras and behind-the-scenes people. No, they just go outside in the middle of the night with right in front of a store that's closed, and they have some duck who's assisting them, and then they just call in, they call in Deputy Dog, who writes a book, and then it jumps over to the Deputy Dog cartoon, which is about that his assistant stole his badge. The bad guy comes along and says, oh, you can't arrest me because you're not the sheriff, which ends up with both of them in prison while the bad guy is free, and then they have to work together to capture the bad guy. Then it jumps over to Sydney the Elephant, in which it's about that there's a rock about to crush a village, and the animal friends convince Sydney to save the village from the rock, but he's a scaredy cat. And all the other animals are scaredy cats, and they want to abandon Sydney so they can run off and, fend for themselves. And then the final one is the Mighty Mouse cartoon, which is about a little boy named Tommy who's a newspaper boy, and he wants to tell Mighty Mouse about that there's a guy named the Creeper who doesn't like newspaper boys, and Mighty Mouse doesn't listen and doesn't believe him. And then when he follows him, it turns out that he's right. So yeah, I'd like to know from your opinion, Mike, what did you think of this pilot?
So this pilot, I watched bits and pieces of it. I watched it before recording again, and then I watched a few parts. I started off with the Heckle and Jekyll one, then I went in to the Deputy Dog part, and then I mostly remember the Mighty Mouse one. Out of all these characters, I've only heard of Mighty Mouse. I think it's the Andy Kaufman Saturday Night Live bit from the very first show. I would say this different segments reminds me of a show like Kablam or even Animaniacs with the different segments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Maybe they were trying to go into that direction. Maybe because that the Terrytoon characters weren't as well known compared to, like, say, Bugs. Like, if you were to do a show about a particular Looney Tunes character, like, none of them would really stick out with the exception of Mighty Mouse. So maybe they wanted to go into that direction, or maybe they were just pitching all four of them into one to see which one would, stick out. I don't know. So yeah, as for me, I do really appreciate that they try to do the variety show segment, but it's really all over the place, and it doesn't flow as well as something like Kablam or Animaniacs. Like, that it's going to be a variety show when you see all these characters and they have their own introductions and stuff like that.
True, yes. You can tell the flow. The segments would be evenly divided. You would tell when one's going to start, one's going to end. There would be interstitial things in between, but it seems like this is just going on all as one. This is a concurrent show.
Right. I mean, it started off decently enough. We have Deputy Dog stepping in, and he was supposed to be like the special guest, and he's promoting his new book or whatever, and then it leads up to his cartoon, and that's fine. And then we have this one in which I don't remember how the Sydney the Elephant one went, but it just came out of nowhere. I do remember the of Mighty Mouse, in which one of the crows reads to the duck about Mighty Mouse, but that one just stopped abruptly because the other crow was suffering from the curse. Like, the first one was already suffering through the curse, and we saw the symptoms of losing his feathers and becoming really weak, and he started smelling. But then the other crow suffered from the same symptoms, and that was why the Mighty Mouse cartoon stopped. We just go right back to Heckle and Jekyll. And yeah, it didn't flow as well. And also, I don't know. I mean, there were some that were just not really that good. I felt that most of them were pretty mediocre. The only one that I did really like was the Mighty Mouse one. That was actually pretty entertaining for me. And as for, like, the others, which, again, I don't know if they really worked well with the shorts, like the original cartoons, but I can't really see any of them lasting for very long. Like, Kablam, for example, didn't really, left an impact on a lot of people who grew up with the Nicktoons, so maybe the variety show segment wouldn't have stuck with Heckle and Jekyll. As for Deputy Dog, it would have been mostly like a Western, and Yeah, I mean, as of right now, there haven't been any westerns in Nickelodeon, so maybe they would have been the first. And as for Sydney the Elephant, I don't know. I mean, you could make a coward charming and lovable, but the friends are just, especially the Lion, was pretty mean-spirited. The giraffe was very loyal to Sydney, but she just felt like she was just going along with whatever the Lion was saying. And, you know, you do kind of root for Sydney, but he just wasn't a strong character to stand on his own. So, yeah, the only one that I really did like was the Mighty Mouse cartoon.
As for me, I enjoyed the opening Heckle and Jekyll bit. Had a nice introduction to the characters, well, since I was pretty much new to this whole Curbside and Terrytoons as a whole. I enjoyed the Heckle and Jekyll bit, seemed pretty fun, and then the Mighty Mouse, that's when it got back to what I remembered. I did mention I'm familiar with Mighty Mouse from previous, I don't know where I first heard of him, but mostly it's from the Andy Kaufman Saturday Night Live bits. So far, there's really not much I can say about this. I went into this pilot with little to no foreknowledge. It could have worked for Nickelodeon, but the pacing and the structure of the show can lead to one getting lost in the middle of it.
Yeah. I think if they would have focused on maybe like either one of the Terrytoon characters, or maybe if the presentation wasn't as clunky, then maybe it could have been pretty decent. It could have definitely introduced a brand new generation to the Terrytoon characters. It would have been interesting too, because, you know, the Nicktoons around the 90s at this point were mostly about creating original cartoons with original ideas. And something like this sounds very similar to what Nickelodeon would do back in the 80s, in which they would acquire old cartoons and showcase it off. Like, you know, they acquired the Looney Tunes cartoons, they acquired Danger Mouse, they acquired Count Duckula. Yeah, I mean, if maybe they would have acquired the Terrytoons, like, I mean, they did, you know, Viacom did have the TV distribution rights, so maybe if they would have shown maybe a handful of episodes, like maybe in an afternoon block, and then maybe showcase Curbside, I think that audiences would have been a lot more familiar with it, and maybe would have been a little bit more comfortable to having maybe a brand new interpretation of it.
If they were still rerunning Wienerville during that time, the Terrytoon shorts could have been used as those cartoon breaks as well.
That would have been a great idea, absolutely. But then again, now that CBS owns the rights to it, this would have probably been another reason why we will never see a DVD distribution of Wienerville.
Understood, yes, definitely.
I don't think that this is like the worst pilot I've ever seen. It's a bit on the ho-hum side, but then again, this is from me who had never seen any of the Terrytoon cartoons. So maybe if I had watched it and I know who the characters are, maybe I would be a little bit more understanding or maybe a little bit more critical. But as a whole, I just kind of see it as pretty mediocre. Some of them were good, others were kind of eh. It just balances out to something as a mediocre packaged.
This seems like it could have been a pretty good show if they got the rights in time and Jerry Beck were involved. He could have seen this project be what it is. Well, he wanted it to be, I should say. But what it came out to be was unfortunate to have this smorgasbord of uncertain storylines and all these characters, one after the other. I'm really unsure how to put this. But then again, like you, Patricia, I also went into this with little to no foreknowledge of the Terrytoons characters. So if I knew more about them besides Mighty Mouse, I could have said more, but that's all I have to say. Though, even if the show itself was mediocre, it had a pretty good voice cast. We had Toby Huss and Bob Goldthwait as Heckle and Jekyll, D. Bradley Baker as Dinky Duck, Sydney the Elephant and Mighty Mouse, Billy West as Deputy Dog, Charlie Adler, Rob Paulson, Haley Joel Osment, had pretty good voice actors, but the show itself, it's on the mess side.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. And absolutely, the voice cast in this was amazing. I was really surprised about Haley Joel Osment, especially this was like around the time in which he was doing The Sixth Sense. So it would have been cool. I think this was like, I don't know, maybe, do you think this, I think this was like one of his first, if maybe his first voiceover role.
It could have been. I actually didn't even recognize Bobcat Goldthwait as Jekyll.
I actually did, because he sounds very much like Pain from Hercules.
True. He's got the gravelly yet high-pitched voice.
Yeah, and of course Toby Huss, he's known for his voice acting as well. He was both Cotton and Con Suvanusenphone in King of the Hill. And yeah, and of course a lot of them are, well-known voice actors like D. Bradley Baker and Rob Paulsen. So yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, final thoughts. I think that trying to revive Terrytoons for a brand new generation of kids was a good idea, but unfortunately, because Jerry Beck was not involved and he had a clear passion of wanting to see this happen, and again, according to what I've read in the site, he also blames the failure of the pilot because the people who are working on it cared nothing for the characters and only did it for the money.
Now, that's a poor way to run a show, if you ask me.
Yeah, I guess I could understand why it failed, because if they had no care or consideration for these characters who are just as old as the Disney characters and the Warner Brothers characters and the Fleischer Brothers characters, you have a rich history of the beginnings of animation in your fingertips, and you're trying to bring it for a brand new generation of kids, and you don't care, then yeah, it's going to show that you don't care. And yeah, the pilot overall is just very, very mediocre. Unless it was tightened up a bit, unless some of the characters and segments would have been a little bit more memorable, then yeah, I don't see it happening as a cartoon for Nickelodeon. Especially with 99, it would have came out the same year as SpongeBob. So yeah, I don't think that Curbside would have stood a chance against SpongeBob.
Definitely not. It would have been overshadowed quickly.
Very quickly. And considering that this was also going to be released the same year, if the Henry and June show would have came out, then yeah, Curbside wouldn't have had a chance. All right, well, I think that should be it for this discussion. So yeah, Mike, why don't you plug and promote your stuff?
On my channel coming up soon, of course, at the end of every month, I do my news show, Vlog Update. I'll be highlighting some trending entertainment news and topics that have come through the month. I have upcoming videos. I might be doing another real vlog soon, hopefully, if that one succeeds better than the old one. Going back to my roots a bit, I'm doing more Toy Story collection videos, and it looks like the car stuff is actually surpassing pretty well. And of course, hopefully either late July, early August will be my unboxing of the Nick Box Volume 4 Summer Block Party. Be sure to stay tuned for those.
All right, well, that sounds great. Mike, thank you so much for joining.
Glad to be here, Patricia.
All right, that should be it for this episode. Tune in next time as we discuss about a canceled TV movie based off of a cult classic Nicktoon that is now getting a second chance of life. So see you next time.
See you guys.
You got rejected, and your genes that thinks you're a disgrace. You got rejected, and you feel like you've been punched in the face. You got rejected, tell your friends your letter's lost in the mail. You got rejected, so just suck it up and go to